everyone, and welcome to Gotta Glitter, the audiobook podcast where each week I read you a chapter from my memoir by the same name. This week we are getting into chapter 17, titled My Drug Dealer Was a Doctor. And this is a lyric taken from the Macklemore song Drug Dealer. Honestly, this song, and go watch the video clip if you haven't seen it already, this is just so powerful and impactful. And I related to the themes so much. If you've gotten this far, you know that my addiction stemmed from opiate painkillers, which were given to me after my spinal surgery, and spiraled from there with a range of mental health issues and, trauma and grief that was all impacted at the same time. I won't give too much away, but I remember talking to someone and saying these exact same things. Like, I don't know how to cut off my dealer because my drug dealer is my doctor. And this is the person that's supposed to be your protector and supposed to be making sure that your health is on track. So it was really tough, and I do relate a lot to this track and a lot of the lyrics in it. So let's have a little snippet to check out what this song's all about and lead us into the chapter.
They said it wasn't a gateway drug. My homie was taking subs and he ain't wake up the whole while. These billionaires, they caked up, paying up Congress, so we take their drugs. Murderers who will never face the judge. And we dancing to a song about a face gone numb. But I seen homies turn gray, noses draining blood. I could have been gone, our 30s faded in that tub. That's Prince, Michael and Whitney, that's Amy, Ledger and Pimp C, that's Yams, that's DJ AM. Goddamn, they're making the killing. Now it's getting attention cause Sarah, Katie and Billy, but this shit's been going on from Seattle out to South Philly. It just moved about the city and it spread out to the burbs. Now it's everybody's problem, got a nation on the verge. Take activists off the market, jack the price up on the syrup. But Purdue Pharma's about to move that work.
My drug dealer was a doctor, had the plug from Big Pharma. He said that he would heal me, but he only gave me problems. My drug dealer was a doctor, had the plug from Big Pharma. I think he trying to kill me. He tried to kill me for $1.
And these devils, they keep on talking to me. They screaming open the box.
Chapter 17, My Drug Dealer Was a Doctor. Soundtrack, Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, Drug Dealer. It had been over a year since my breakup with Simon, yet it still felt as fresh as the day it happened. I was struggling my way through my final semester at uni when I decided the answer to all my problems was falling in love with someone else. Enter Alessandro. Alessandro was a family friend from Toronto. We had reconnected via Facebook, as per most romances born of desperation and loneliness. Growing up as the migrant kids on their street, Alessandro's late mother and my own were best friends. My mum was the child of Estonian refugees, and his was fresh off the boat from Calabria. The girls bonded as 5-year-olds whose pickled fish and smelly cured meats were too confronting for the other children. They enjoyed 60 years as friends before his mother sadly took her own life due to mental illness. Alessandro swanned into my dysfunction with all his charm, cheek, and good looks. Right away, he spoke about our lives together like they were set in stone. Like it was a given that we had a future together. When he spoke of home, it was ours to share, not his and mine. From day one, our separate entities had gone, and I was part of a we again. For a year, I had been walking around feeling non-existent in my own skin, in a body I didn't recognize without Simon beside it. Suddenly, here was Alessandro telling me that I wasn't alone anymore, and I felt whole again. My entire existence rested on the shoulders of this new man. In all those years with Simon, I had never had that security. I was never allowed to fantasize about our wedding day or the family we may build together. I never even felt assured enough in our own home to decorate. I bought a single throw cushion. That was it. So, when Alessandro swooped in and started creating the world of us, it felt amazing. It felt hopeful. I was convinced Alessandro was the one I had been waiting for. He was 17 years my senior at 44, which added to my sense of security. He was Canadian-Italian, tall, had gorgeous olive skin and a smile that could melt an iceberg. He had a young son from a previous marriage, but had long since been divorced. He communicated well and was both funny and impossibly sexy. He spoke at least 4 languages and even went to therapy. Boys, if you're reading this, take note. Nothing gets a girl going like a man in therapy. He was perfect. And damn, was he smooth. Despite the 14-hour time difference, my intense study load and his corporate job, we chatted all day, every day. We were addicted to each other. I lived on 4 hours of sleep a night just so I could stay awake until 2 a.m. talking to him. It was exhilarating. I lived for the hours we were both awake at the same time. The rest of the day felt meaningless and wasteful. In my final month of uni, my supervisors and classmates would see me gazing obsessively into my phone and could tell how my day was going based on my reactions. If my desire for affection and attention had been met, I would go bounding into the clinic like a kid at Christmas. If his tone had changed, or he wasn't responding as quickly as the day before, I would be plagued with panic and completely distracted. I'd suck the energy out of the room so fast you could swear I was a dementor in training. Only days into our online communication, we had already said those 3 little words. I love you. I couldn't focus to save myself, but I didn't care. I had love, and that was more important than any degree. Love would pave the way to my future. After a week of talking, we had booked 2 tickets to Tuscany for the type of romantic month-long holiday that dreams are made of. Our first date. It was all I could do not to burst out of my skin. I even forgot about my heartache. I had something to look forward to again. Nothing could ruin this. Nothing could burst my bubble. Every day, I would count down the days until it was time to board the flight that would take me to the man of my dreams. Perhaps it was a little strange that the first time we met, I was 11 and visiting my grandparents in Canada, and he was pushing 30. But any oddities were easily overridden by the pure fact that this was fate. All the pain and suffering of my previous relationships, of my previous life, had guided me to this very moment. We became so close so quickly that I didn't worry about telling Alessandro about my mental health issues. He had his own troubles after all. I had already advised him about my addiction, but looking back, I don't think he really heard me. Just as I had when I was on the verge of paralysis with my spinal tumour or wasting away from anorexia, I looked relatively normal. I was thin, and if you got too close, you would see a film of sweat lining my skin and the glazed over look of my eyes. But when I left the house, I would dress in slacks and a shirt for uni and slap on some makeup. Like everyone else in their final year of study, I looked tired and stressed. I needed to look a certain way, or my doctors would have figured out that I was hiding a crippling addiction a long time ago. 2 weeks into our long-distance romance, I spilled everything to Alessandro. "Oh, hey, you should know I have bipolar. I mean, you obviously know I'm grieving, but yeah, I guess you should know about the bipolar too. I'm on medication for both anyway. It shouldn't be a problem." "Oh, right. Okay," he replied. "I mean, I've been diagnosed with every mental illness under the sun. It's not like they're all happening at the same time all of the time. Besides, I'm starting to question whether I'm actually that sick or if the world just wasn't built for people like me. I'd be really content if I could live like a cat. But we are supposed to contribute to society. Boo! Cats contribute to society by being super adorable. I'm amazing at that." "Yes, you are, weirdo. So anyway, I thought you should know. There's a bit of speculation around whether or not I have borderline personality disorder too, but..." "What?" "Yeah, it's kind of like bipolar, but like on steroids." "No, it's not. You have BPD?" "No, I mean, it's just been bandied around as an..." What the fuck, Kirsty? What? What's the big deal? You were cool with me having bipolar 2 seconds ago. BPD is different. You should have told me before. When? We've only been talking for 2 weeks. Do you want me to drop my mental health shit on day 1? Are you mental? You tricked me. You've been lying to me. It's messed up." No, I'm telling you right now. Besides, I'm not even officially diagnosed. It was a flippant remark. For fuck's sake, I wish I didn't say anything. Whatever. Even the thought that you could have it is bad. Where is this coming from? I'm so confused right now. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I've got to get ready for work. I don't know, maybe we should just cancel the holiday. What? No! Please, just talk to me. I've got to go. I'll talk to you later. He wouldn't talk to me again for 3 days. Nothing. Dead silence. I panicked as I saw yet another man driven away by my intensity. Driven away by my me-ness. Well, not this time, I decided, with a terrifying level of tenacity. I wasn't letting this one get away. I would make him love me, whether he wanted to or not. You know those Australian koala souvenirs that wrap around the end of a pencil and hang on, clutching for dear life? Yeah. So that was my entire plan. We would meet in Tuscany. I would wrap myself around his neck and he would have to pry off my cold, dead hands if he ever wanted his freedom back. Simple, romantic, and not at all a symptom of BPD. Before the flight, I needed to organise all the medications I would need for a month away. This was no easy feat, as it would include over 100 opioids, daily antipsychotics, which were clearly working a treat, and my weight in antidepressants. By this stage, I was also using a walking stick because my health was declining from stress-induced fibromyalgia and the painful cravings my body produced from oxy withdrawal. I was in constant pain and chronically exhausted. I had tried to warn Alessandro about all of this, but he, like me, was blinded by fantasy and told me to leave my pimp cane at home. I had concerns about being left to walk in pain or be weak with exhaustion, but the sheer fact that I needed to believe Alessandro would take care of me quickly dismissed them. All I wanted was for someone to take my life in their hands and nurse it back to health like a baby bird. I don't think either of us thought we would end up walking the cobblestone streets of Montepulciano while he supported my entire body weight on his arm because I was both too weak and too pained to stand on my own. Getting the medication for this holiday was a mission in itself. My GP was starting to catch on to the fact that I had an issue with these meds, but rather than refuse my prescription, he chose to make sure I would be safe while away. We would deal with my little problem when I came home. As he so generously put it, "You are not the problem, but this is a problem." As far as he was aware, Mum had successfully taken care of my medications for months, and all was relatively under control. Sure, I was reliant on my weekly Oxynorm prescription, but it wasn't out of control. He certainly didn't picture me waiting impatiently for the pharmacy to open at 8 a.m, gripping my hand tightly around the end of my walking stick so I wouldn't feel it restlessly tickle and shake from withdrawals. He didn't imagine me fiendishly scraping the tiny granules of white powder off public bathroom floors after I'd foolishly knocked the phone I'd been racking on off the large silver toilet paper holder at the crack of dawn right before treating patients. That wasn't me. I was sweet Kirsty, who he had treated for ear infections as a child, as he pretended to look for possums between my ears. I was the girl who survived spinal cancer that he discovered. I was ashamed, but not enough to stop. In any case, it's not like I had another option. The alternative was to feel everything that bubbled and brewed just below the surface, which was unbearable, even in its dulled state. My desperation to obtain the meds and fly to Alessandro outweighed any hint of shame. Besides, soon everything would be fine. Alessandro was the answer to all of this. Heartbreak had destroyed me, and love was the cure. To gain access to the medications, I had to adhere to several rules that proved I could look after myself for the duration of the trip. I had previously asked Mum to be in charge of my pill supply, hoping this would derail my addictive tendencies. So Mum was required to accompany me to my next doctor's appointment and agree that she felt completely comfortable with my capacity to self-dose. Despite the fact she had caught me stealing my tablets from her hiding spots multiple times. Then she would have to call Alessandro and make sure he knew exactly how much and how often I was to take my meds, now that he was my newly assigned carer. It was like the adults were talking, and I was the naughty teenager being sent away to the grandparents' house for the summer to get my shit together. Hot. Imagine my delight when we passed every test and were given all the prescriptions my junky heart desired. Boxes upon boxes of those orange and white capsules. Decadent. Now, imagine how Alessandro was feeling. Something I didn't consider at the time, but now imagine was similar to that YouTube video of the little girl whose mother feeds her wasabi for the first time. The 3-year-old unsuspectingly tastes the green mush, and we watch her transition from shock horror to betrayal as her entire face catches on fire. She's in so much agony she can hardly speak. Somehow, she manages to squeak out a solemn plea for help. It's as cruel as it is hilarious. But my gut was telling me this scenario leaned more toward cruelty than hilarity. The day had finally arrived, and I was in the sky on my way to a brand new life. My excitement was palpable and contagious. I told anyone who would listen about my romantic journey to love. But the 30 hours of travel gave Alessandro the space he hadn't had in 2 weeks to think. Don't think, never think. I needed to get there and suction myself to him like a barnacle before more damage was done. By the time I was halfway and could check my phone between changeover flights, totes not obsessively, his texting style had changed significantly. He was now indecisive about meeting me at the airport in Rome and was no longer convinced we should stay in the same room. He even started to claim that when he had said he loved me, he had meant it as a friend. Not that he was in love with me, but that he had love for me. Cool. Thanks, bro. I was confused, scared, and unraveling with anxiety. Had I made up the entire thing? I couldn't have. Who plans an entire romantic escapade to Tuscany with a mate? No. He was pulling away, and I could feel it over the Pacific Ocean. I spent the next 10 hours drinking tiny bottles of ice-cold red wine and lamenting the fact I had left my boxed-up oxys in my luggage, having already made my way through the flight rations. I watched A Star is Born 3 times and cried so hard that the young boy sitting next to me tugged at his mother's sleeve to ask if I was okay. I simply gestured to the ruggedly handsome and relatably fucked up Bradley Cooper on my in-flight entertainment, which was met by an understanding nod from the mother. Nailed it. Fueled by lack of sleep, copious amounts of alcohol, oxy withdrawals, and panic that Alessandro wouldn't show, I crawled off the flight with a mixture of dread and excitement. I hurried straight to the bathroom to take a horse bath with wet wipes, change my in-flight undies, and slap some makeup on my face to pretend I am always this effortlessly stunning when coming off an 18-hour flight. Collecting my baggage, I was sure I would be stopped for drug trafficking with the amount of medication I had with me. My doctor had even written individual letters for myself and Alessandro, just in case we got pulled up carrying my supplies. But all was well, and I made my way through the departure gates, heart racing. I walked through the large automated doors, following the hordes of weary travellers before me. My eyes darted rapidly to try and find him as I held my breath in anticipation. There he was. My guilt tripping had worked. He was here, and all would be okay. As I walked towards him with my bags in tow, I anxiously wondered if he would kiss me, hug me, or tell me he was sick of my bullshit and put me straight on a flight back home. To my delight, he took me in his arms and gave me a big kiss. I'd never been so in love. The following days were spent in our gorgeous Italian cottage, surrounded by olive groves and rolling hills. We zipped from Arezzo to Volterra in our hired Fiat 500, stopping only to drink provincial wines and gorge ourselves on tortellini al brodo and wild boar ragu. In the afternoons, Alessandro would sip his espresso like the real Italian he was, and I would order a macchiato or, God forbid, a post-midday cappuccino, much to his embarrassment. He taught me the correct way to twirl my spaghetti so I wouldn't draw attention to the dirty fact that we were tourists. "What are you doing?" He leaned in and hushed his voice in a way that made me positive I had committed a terrible crime. "Did I forget to wear pants again? Shit." "What?" I replied, a mouthful of spaghetti alla morne. "Have you never eaten spaghetti before?" I'm eating it right now. It's delicious. You want some? Oh my God, stop. Is he serious? Here, let me show you. He took my plate and put it down in front of him for my lesson on how to feed myself. Something I had been somewhat successfully achieving on my own for the past 28 years. He took a small amount of pasta, twirled it around his fork, and then popped it in his mouth. See? You did it all by yourself! Good job! I said as if praising a baby because, well, you get it. No, you have to take a small amount to the edge of the bowl and then twirl. Not from the middle like you were doing. That's how you don't get too much. I took a deep breath and a large swig of the perfectly selected white wine that accompanied my pasta dish. Not all of us spent every year between 10 and 18 summering in Calabria, you know. I teased, taking my dish back. It's a basic life skill. It's really not. Has anyone ever told you that you're the single most pretentious person on the planet? I asked, now twirling my pasta with precision technique. Very often, yes. But now look at you. Perfetto, he said, kissing the air. It was infuriating how much easier his technique was. I began to notice more and more that he was embarrassed by me. I laughed too loudly. I talked too much. I pronounced Nutella like an Aussie bogan, Nut-ella, and not with the Italian flair of Sevilla Loren. Nutella. The wines I enjoyed were déclassés, and I was forbidden from cooking out of fear I would ruin a perfectly good meal. Cooking with and for another person is a passion of mine and a sincere expression of love. He felt suffocated by me. I needed him too much, which I did. He was my only means of connection to the people of these remote villages, most of whom didn't speak English. Even as he flirted at length with the lusciously curvy brunette concierge of our albergo, I turned a blind eye because I didn't want to feed into the narrative that I was unstable and jealous, which obviously I was. Later, he would mock me. Ha! You didn't even notice we were flirting right in front of you. She invited me to her family's cottage. You were just standing there, clueless. To argue that despite not understanding the language of Italian, I did understand the language of love would have been useless. He wanted me to be jealous and possessive, so I would be neither. Instead, I excused myself to the bathroom to be with my true love. Safe now. He was responsible for maintaining my failing health and well-being, and for soothing my heart. It didn't take long before he was exhausted and resentful about being stuck with me. It would have been impossibly hard. I was unwell in every imaginable way. And here was this man who, from nowhere, suddenly had the weight of my world on his shoulders. Like me, he had entered this relationship excited for a future of love, relief, and happiness following a difficult breakup. He was hopeful that I would be what he had been waiting a lifetime for. He was a romantic. Before he met me, I guess he pictured this woman who was damaged, but in a sexy, moody, Lana Del Rey kind of way. He hadn't considered the extent of my anguish and how desperately I needed him to save me. But he was learning. I watched as he discovered that he was not cut out for the job. I don't know who would be. I needed a tribe of doctors. I needed full-time care with my mother on standby. The last thing I needed was a middle-aged man who lived on the other side of the world and carried the baggage of his own past traumas to add to mine. But nobody could tell me that at the time. A few brave souls tried, but it fell on deaf, volatile ears. I felt Alessandro's growing hesitation. It panicked me. But I had all the answers in several hundred little pills rattling around in my suitcase. He had been advised by me, my mum, and my doctor to hold on to the medication and monitor its usage. But this didn't happen. Probably because I was very good at pretending I was totally in control and would pathologically lie about how much I was taking. I even stopped monitoring myself. Why would I? I was convinced that even though I was prescribed 4 low-dose oxys per day, and I was taking well over double that, I would never run out. Besides, Alessandro was bound to notice eventually, right? Like I'd done with Simon, I allowed myself to get worse and worse, willing him to notice. Soon he would see. Soon he would sound the alarm and stop me. Please, stop me. It was a cold November in Italy, but my withdrawals made me sure I was always coated in a thin layer of sweat. Overnight, as the time between oxys peaked, I would have severe hot flushes that drenched my clothes and soaked through the bedding to the mattress. I would wake up in the night shivering from the cold air hitting my damp skin and have to change my clothes. There were times Alessandro and I would be making sweet, passionate love in our romantic Tuscan villa, soaked in wine and natural oxytocin. And I would become so sweaty, I'd have to grab onto him for dear life. Letting go would surely mean flying slippery and naked across the room like a surprised seal being flung off a rock by a large wave. Not the most graceful way to start a picturesque under the Tuscan sun style romance. Rained upon by the foul-smelling sweat emanating from the depths of liver toxicity and imminent death. Onions. He told me I smelled like onions. Suffice it to say that this is not what I was going for. Despite his growing disdain and fear of my ever-increasing erraticism, I desperately wanted to earn his love back. He sniffed out my desperation and made me work for his affection by openly flirting with attractive waitresses and concierge people right in front of me. Speaking in Italian, I suppose he thought he was getting away with something. It was a twisted display of power and narcissism. Not to fuel the fire, I stood idly by and said nothing. I didn't want him to know how much it hurt and embarrassed me. And I really didn't want him to realize that his stupid little game was indeed working. I felt him slipping through my fingers, but knew that if I could just keep hold of a single grain of hope, maybe he would relent. Only weeks ago, I was his lifeblood. Love couldn't dissolve that quickly, could it? 10 days in, and he was hardly speaking to me. His sweet nothings had transformed into the grunting and snapping of a teenager when asked, "How was school?" But in public, he would come alive. Then I became the light of his life. He would buy me fancy dinners and expensive handbags as he proudly exclaimed that I was his ragazza, his girl. And just like that, my dream of us would be restored. Privately, he made no effort to disguise his resentment and disappointment that I wasn't the girl he'd imagined. Yet He was still sleeping with me regularly. He still seemed to desire me. This wasn't the selfish, just because I was there type of sex. No, this was the most passionate, intense, fulfilling, multiple orgasming sex of my life. If he was using me as his personal wank sock, he disguised it magnificently. Alessandro's duality played with my head and my heart in a way I wasn't used to. I would swing from loved to despised and back again in a single afternoon. To cope, I took more painkillers. Until, before I knew it, with over 2 weeks left of the holiday, I ran out. I searched every inch of my suitcase and begged Alessandro to do the same. But neither of us had a single pill stashed away. I'd been taking at least 10 painkillers a day and would now have to go cold turkey. I'd been taking these pills for 7 years to soothe the ache in my body and heart. And now I had nothing to lean on. I was already getting withdrawal shakes, debilitating exhaustion, hot sweats, joint and muscle aches, suicidal depression, and homicidal aggravation. And that was just between doses on any average day. This was going to be bad. Alessandro regularly reminded me how grey and clammy I looked in my current state. How would I win back his affections while potentially fetal, sickly green, and head or tails over the toilet bowl? Buckle up, motherfuckers. Do you have any of my oxy left anywhere, my love? I asked, trying to sound calm and coming across wildly unhinged. Check your daily pill box. Yeah, I have. It's Wednesday. Yeah, I know, but what did you do? No, nothing. Nothing, really, but I accidentally did take some of the other days. Fuck. How many? 1, 3, just all of them? I hoped turning it into a question would somehow change the outcome. What do you mean, all of them? Oh, just all of them. I know, it's really bad, but you have some stashed away, yeah? You put some in your suitcase. What? No. That's what was in the pill box. Have you hidden some? You've hidden some away, haven't you? Alessandro, I promise you, if I had, I would not be having this conversation with you right now. Now, I was beginning to panic. I was sure he had an extra box in his suitcase. Did I just fantasize about that in my fucking hot flash fever dreams? Well, have a look in your suitcase. Show me you're not hiding any. Sandro, I have just been through every single fucking inch of my bags like a goddamn maniac. You were my last resort. Fuck. I'm fucked. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is bad. Yeah, it is. You were supposed to help me. You lied to me. You didn't tell me you were this bad. I didn't know. Fuck. What the fuck are we going to do? What am I going to do? He was pissed. I was a wreck. And we were both freaking out. I knew I couldn't be trusted with my own dose management. But he hadn't wanted to listen. He didn't want to know who I really was. How sad I really was. He just wanted me to be his sexy little gypsy girl. Well, he was about to learn how sexy I could be without my drugs and my fucking walking stick, which by now I was definitely regretting leaving at home. If he had been using me as arm candy, he was in luck because I was clinging to him like my human cane. As the days wore on and my pain and exhaustion worsened, I relied more and more on him to support my dead weight. In an attempt to prevent my falling into fatal or just plain disgusting withdrawals, Alessandro and I spent 2 days driving around quaint Tuscan villages in search of a doctor who would provide a random Aussie junkie with opioids. This came with several layers of difficulty. One was that I only spoke enough Italian to ask for gelato al pistacchio, or un'altra bottiglia di vino rosso, per favore? And certainly not enough to manipulate a non-English speaking doctor into trusting me with a Schedule 8 drug. Another is that Italians in general are very strict with medications. They aren't all that keen on paracetamol or ibuprofen, let alone something as addictive and dangerous as my meds. We had no idea how to locate or book to see a doctor in one of these tiny old villages. The way I understand the medical system in Italy is that residents are allocated a local doctor as their GP without a choice. So as tourists, we didn't belong anywhere. The hospital probably would have been our best bet, but we were hours away from any major city, and I was deteriorating rapidly. My depression and fatigue worsened by the hour. My hands began to tickle and shake, and all over my body, muscles cramped without relief. My right knee began to throb and buckle out from under me. Alessandro chuckled. It's funny, isn't it? Excuse me? I winced in pain, rubbing my knee. You know, how your body is actually making more pain. What the fuck? I'm not making this up. No, I know you don't think you are, but it's all in your head. I stared at him, willing an anvil to fall from the sky and squash him. You do know that literally all pain is generated in the mind, right? But he didn't listen. I began singing Fiona Apple to remind myself that all boys are this stupid. It's not his fault. He can't help it. He said, it's all in your head, and I said, so's everything, but he didn't get it. I thought he was a man, but he was just a little boy. In order to protect his sanity and stop my incessant complaining, Alessandro worked hard to find a doctor that would see us. Thank fuck he could speak fluent Italian. Without him, I am positive I would have ended up either in hospital or dying from heart failure. I wanted to punch a wall, vomit the contents of my guts, and sleep for 14 years. But I didn't really understand how dire the situation was. I didn't realize how close to death I came. 3 villages and much Googling later, Alessandro found us a tiny doctor's office in Lucca. It was a hole-in-the-wall, ancient, one-man operation that I was so grateful for I could have kissed the cobblestones. We walked in to join the 4 other patients in the waiting area. They were all over 60, and I'm pretty sure one of them was a nun. Forgive me, sister, for I have sinned. The assembled stared at me, intrigued. I tried to smile, to hide the fact that I was a feral drug fiend, here to pollute their town with my presence. I swear, there is nothing that makes you question your life choices more than an 80-year-old Italian woman looking into the depths of your soul without saying a word. I'm sorry, Nonna. I promise I'll be better, I thought, bowing my head in shame. As we were called in, Alessandra turned to me and said, "Don't say a word." The doctor was sitting behind a large leather-topped desk. I felt like a naughty schoolgirl who'd been called into the principal's office. I sat quietly, trying to look sweet and nice, preventing my involuntary twitches by holding my hands together tightly in my lap. Alessandro was talking quickly in Italian. I couldn't understand a word. The men would turn to me every now and then, and Alessandro would translate a question. I replied, and he translated my words back to the doctor. I smiled softly the entire time, despite the thick tension in the room. If I just kept looking doe-eyed, he couldn't possibly think I was here to score. "Please, sir, I need your help. I am but a poor and sickly travelling beauty, lost in this strange and wondrous land. Damsel, distress, etc." Alessandro's plan was to focus on my spinal surgery and drop the cancer card. "She's a cripple with rods in her spine. Her very existence is agony. Take pity, kind sir." At least, that's how I imagined it. After a lengthy discussion about me, but without me, the doctor finally pulled out his prescription pad. I held my breath in anticipation. Please, please, please. I crossed my toes beneath the table, praying for oxy and not some watered-down shit. Alessandro turned to me and said slowly and calmly, as if talking to a toddler who has just scraped their knee, "It's okay. We got it," before he instructed me to leave the room while he paid the nice man. Inside, I was quietly celebrating. I focused intently on my facial expressions, making sure I didn't lick my lips in anticipation. As I walked out the door, I couldn't contain the excitement any longer. My face burst into a wide smile. He'd done it. He'd actually done it. Alessandro stayed, talking to the doctor for another 20 minutes or so. I sat outside the office, letting all the twitches I'd suppressed earlier come out in full swing. One foot tapping the floor, and the other leg jiggling rampantly. Likewise, my eyes and mouth would twitch and stretch intermittently. My hands were fiddling with something on my face or scratching one of my many bodily itches. That was one symptom of opioid addiction I never got used to. Your entire body becomes itchy as though your skin is crawling with 1,000 tiny ants, creeping and crawling just under your skin. You can scratch and scratch until your skin is red raw, but you never find relief. I have woken up some mornings with bruises or having drawn blood from scratching in my sleep. It almost made it not worth it. Almost. When Alessandro emerged from the doctor's office, he looked a mixture of concerned and pissed off. Rightly so, but I was more interested in getting out of there and straight to a pharmacy. He said nothing as we drove home, and nothing for the rest of the day until the evening, when he was ready to talk. "So, that doctor's worried about you, you know?" "Yeah, him and the rest of the world." I rolled my eyes, sick to death of everyone's concern. "So, what did he say?" "He doesn't think your doctor at home is taking care of you." I tried hard not to snigger rudely at this, knowing I was the charlatan in that relationship. "Oh yeah? You're on too many different things." "No shit." "Why are you on both long and slow release OxyContin? He said you don't need both." "I need both." "But you don't." I stared at the very definition of if looks could kill at him and said slowly, "I need both." He stared back at me unwavering. He was angry and I felt caught out. I felt like yelling, "You know why? I'm a fucking junkie with chronic illness and chronic grief. I need it all. And in fact, I need more. But I didn't have to. He was learning it for himself in real time.
I wanna forge a prescription, cause doctor, I need some more of it. When morphine and heroin is more of your budget. I said I never use a needle, but sure, fuck it. I'm caught up, I'm on one, I'm nauseous, no options, exhausted. This is not what I started. Walking carcass, I lost everything I wanted. My blind's drawn, too gone to leave this apart.
My drug dealer was a doctor had the blood from big.
Thanks for listening. If you want more, check out the show notes and follow the link to my website or Linktree, where you can get your very own copy of the book in eBook or paperback. Join me on Instagram or listen to the Spotify playlist of all the theme songs from the book. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod so it downloads straight to your app each week. And if you like the show, why not share it with your mates? All right, see you guys. Bye.
Re-up, death certificate, signed the prenup. Ain't no coming back from this Percocet activist, Ambien, Adderall, Xanax binge. Best friends with the thing that's killing me. Enemies with my best friend. There's no healing me. Refilling these. They say it's debt. Institutions and DOC. So God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can. And the wisdom to know the difference. And the wisdom to know the difference.